What do you think of the what do you think of the TikTok content I've been farting out?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It was just like a spur of the moment thing, and wholeheartedly intend to take it forward. It's doubled my followers on there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
a couple of them blew up a little bit. Like
yeah.
I was just like, wow, that's pretty great.
Actually, while we're on the subject, just before we begin, let me have a look. Let me check. Let me check TikTok 1 second, see where they're up to, because I think one of them, one of the Pantera ones, is in the lead
Yeah.
with 8,223 views, which
It's pretty great.
and it's the Primal Concrete Sledge one.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Yeah. Time will be with me. Time for Primal Concrete Sledge.
Yeah. I love the ones that accent the snares, but the ones where it's done in a little space, like that's
Yeah.
for some reason. Because that reminds me of shit I used to do back when I was a kid. I used to make
Yeah.
like weird. I used to just be so bored that I would, on the double cassette deck tape player, I would just be doing whatever weird edits I could come up with to do. And I always had an abundance of fart sound effects because my friends would come over and we were all just farting on a tape recorder, and then there they were. So I would put them in songs. Or
Nice.
My favorite one that I used to do, and I feel kind of ripped off because I got ripped off by Weird Al on this one. I remember very early on doing it with "Smells Like Teen Spirit." So it was like, and I had a tape where I did that, and I thought it was the most hilarious thing. And I know
Nice.
Weird Al didn't use fart sounds, but he did sounds over that part of the song.
Speaking of which, that's one to add to the playlist. Let me add that real quick because I can't believe I didn't think of that. Oh shit. Should we have this as the intro? Should we just start, or are we going?
We can start now. Hi, everyone. This is 2024 Cranked and Ranked.
That was a cool delay you got there.
It was a very big room that I was yelling in, and nobody was there.
Well,
yeah.
I've gone ahead and added "Smells Like Teen Spirit" to the Fart Talk playlist. So
Yeah. Smells like teen gas. Or something like that.
I was just going to say, for those who don't know, I've got a new favorite hobby, and that consists of finding reverbed fart sound effects on YouTube and adding them into songs on TikTok, and it makes people smile. There's
I literally giggle every time. It's legit funny.
Yeah, and I thought it was time for TikTok to have some content with some real depth and a storyline.
Yeah. I keep doing videos. The new year started, and I'm just gonna do videos just to do them, because I know that if I don't try, then it's never gonna work. But I do videos and it gets like 200 views, and then you got song farts with over 6,000, but to be fair, that's way funnier than the shit that I'm doing.
I've definitely gone down the meme route for sure. You can't go wrong with a good, solid, well-placed fart in a song.
Yeah, it's true.
I will say, people are sleeping on the Sad But True one. That one's lagging behind in terms of views, but that one, I love that one.
Everybody go follow us on the TikTok. I mean, I guess I'm old head TX, just like everywhere else, and then you're just Eddie Sparxx.
I'm just Eddie Sparxx, man.
Speaking of that, that's us. That's us,
Yes.
old head Eddie Sparxx. This is Cranked and Ranked, and I think that this is I like this because we're setting a precedent or whatever for the year ongoing. That there's no need for formal introductions anymore.
No.
As long as I say the name of the show at some point, which I already did. then we're good to go. And we are starting off the year with a big one. And the big, well, no, I guess the biggest one is when we ever get to the Beatles. That's probably the one where the most people will have opinions. But this one is a very, it's one that,
it's big. It's a big one.
yeah, it's Led Zeppelin, ladies and gentlemen. It's in the title. You can see that. Led Zeppelin. We're starting off the year with one of the most influential bands in rock and metal. I mean, they influence metal bands. They influence. I'm wearing my Rush shirt. I did this on purpose because the first Rush album is the one where people say Geddy Lee was trying to sound like Robert Plant.
Nice.
And so and I don't have any Led Zeppelin gear, but yeah. So we're doing all of the Led Zeppelin albums in one episode, including Coda, which is the like Leftovers album that was the last one they put out. And and the thing that I kept thinking over and over again when doing this was they're one of the most popular and influential rock bands, and they really never, they broke up and that was it.
Yeah.
And sure, Page and Plant have done some shit and blah blah blah. There's other stuff that happened, but there was never a reunion album. There was never really a reunion at all, like where it was Led Zeppelin. That never happened, as far as I remember.
I think the closest thing is Celebration Day, that reunion concert in like 2007. But there were a couple times, like 2 or 3 times in the 80s and 90s where they did like TV appearances. Most notably the infamous Live Aid one, where that tends to get trashed on a lot. I haven't actually seen much of it. I just remember hearing it was a little janky.
But it's just so funny to me that all of these, so many bands, even ones that you're like, there's no way they're gonna ever reunite, they all sort of end up doing some sort of reunion thing, carrying on the band name. And Led Zeppelin, the one where they could literally probably make $1 billion doing it, they haven't. And to me, it's great because it really puts a lot more weight on the actual output that they did. Yeah. But on top of that, it further solidifies a theory that I have, where they're an amazing band, but their secret weapon was John Bonham. Mm-hmm. And so, because I really got a chance to dig into these, because I know all of these albums really well, but the fact that we spent a couple weeks not doing this, I got to go back and really listen to stuff. And there were so many times where I went, if another drummer was on this, it would not have been as cool as this is. So so it really makes me think, I think they know that too. They're like, look, we're fucking great, but we don't have John Bonham, and Jason Bonham is just okay. But so we're gonna do all 9 Led Zeppelin albums, and we normally talk about where the band came into our lives, and this one is I actually have a big story, not really a big story, but I have a big connection with this band because I got into them very early on. When I was a kid, when I first actually started going out and buying my own stuff. So probably, the late 80s was when I actually started going and picking out my own stuff and trying to save up my money to go buy things. And one of the big things to do back at that time was go to, there is still in Texas, a used bookstore called Half Price Books. And Half Price Books also has records and VHS, DVDs, all that stuff used, and pretty good prices. But in the late 80s, so many people were selling off their records because they were upgrading to CDs that you could just go in there. And I found I remember I had like an original version of Abbey Road back in the day.
Wow.
And I had an original of Led Zeppelin 4 from the 70s. And I had an In Through the Outdoor. The inside of it you would color with water, but the one I had was completely untouched. And what did I do? I colored it with water. But Led Zeppelin was a big deal because after getting the two that I found at the half price books were Led Zeppelin 4 and In Through the Outdoor. I love those albums. So very quickly, I don't remember, was it 90 or 91 when the big Led Zeppelin box set came out, the remasters. It was 4 CDs. It was in a box.
Yeah.
I talked about it on one of our Christmas episodes because that's the one where my brother faked me out and got me the Milli Vanilli Robin Fab CD instead of that, and then ended up actually having the Led Zeppelin box in his car. But that box set was a big deal because I loved so many songs on that, and they just became a band that I just loved listening to. And then I kind of fell off. Like as I got a little older, because they're so heavily featured on like classic rock radio over here, and just in general, I just got kind of burnt out. And so for a long time, we're talking up until recently, I would randomly hear a Led Zeppelin song, go, that's kind of cool. But I never wanted to go back and listen to any of the albums until we did this, which I'll talk about when we go into our ranking. But for you, obviously, I don't, is Led Zeppelin on GTA? Because I was
no, they're not. Come to think of it, I don't think they're on a game full stop.
You're probably right.
Yeah, because they tend to be funny with that, don't they? Like I remember back in the day, you could never find tabs of their stuff on Songster, which always weirded me out. Like I remember
Songster.
Yeah, there was a like guitar tabs, but it was like a player, so it would play like a MIDI version of a lot of people talk about Ultimate Guitar, but this one had a little thing that would go do like a 1993 Doom version of Master of Puppets, or like
back in my day. You didn't have any of that shit. You had like
books.
Guitar Player magazine would be like, in this one, they learn how to play Stairway to Heaven, and then you would, get that or whatever. But yeah, you're right. They don't let their stuff get used. I feel like it's happening more now than it used to.
Yeah.
But I think the idea, the quote unquote idea of selling out has changed a lot over the years. Yeah. And a lot of people, it's have gotten comfortable with the idea of like, well, it's mine. Why would I not make money off of it?
Prime example being Metallica with Stranger Things. I mean, for ages they were like, of course they did that song for Mission Impossible, but they're a lot more open these days to like putting their stuff in things. and if it's used in a meaningful way, why not? Like I would have a problem. Like I hate it when they change lyrics and use a song in like a commercial. One of the, this is not on topic at all, but one of the things that annoyed me so much that I yelled at my TV when I saw it. I may have talked about this in some other episode, but was it the early 2000s or late 90s when Jam Master Jay from Run DMC was murdered, and it was a big deal, and I was like, I loved Run DMC, and I was like, oh, it fucking sucks. And there's a part, I think it's in, is it Hit It Run, the song, but it ends with them doing a little thing where they do Run DMC and Jam Master Jay, and like, it's a really great part of that song. And then all of a sudden, there's a fucking Dr. Pepper commercial. And they use that sample in it, only it goes, Run DMC and Dr. Pepper. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I was just like, how?
No!
That right there is fucking selling out. You're like, oh, the dude that got murdered, leave him out and throw in Dr. Pepper. It's like, so that's the kind of shit where I'm like, that's selling out right there, Run DMC.
Do you remember what you yelled at the TV?
Knowing me, I probably went, fuck off, or something.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the late '90s, so I don't remember but I just remember like being in a room. I think I was at my friend's apartment, and I think I audibly was just like, "How the fuck could they do that?" But I just anyway. That's once again, it's not my music. They can do with it what they will. But just imagine, like, Stairway to Heaven, and she's buying insurance from Geico or something like that,
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. Anyway, so wait, where did you first hear Led Zeppelin?
I think it was after I watched Wayne's World one time, where it was like, I should probably find out how Stairway to Heaven actually sounds, because I'd never heard it up to, watching the film.
But you saw the VHS version where he doesn't actually play Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does that.
Whereas in the theater, he literally goes, and then it stops.
Yeah.
But
wow. That's got to be like lost media now at this point, right?
You can find. I've seen people post it on TikTok. You can find it out there. Somebody out there somewhere. I don't know how they got it, but the original, you can hear it with the original sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to see that. But yeah, honestly, you know what? It might even be on the shelf somewhere. But my introduction to Led Zeppelin was also that same CD box set, because my uncle had it.
Oh, okay.
And it was lying around, and I basically said, hey, I want to get into more 70s stuff. Because up to that point, I'd gotten really into kind of the 80s thrash stuff. I hadn't quite hit the glam thing yet, but I was deep into grunge.
Yeah.
But some of the grunge bands had a lot in common with 70s bands when it came to the riffage.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, if this thing that I'm really into is really into this thing's got to be really cool.
Yeah.
So I basically sought out Led Zeppelin, listened to the box set over the course of a few days, couple weeks maybe, and I was just like, how did I not know so many of these awesome riffs? I mean, I knew the big ones,
Yeah.
Some of them that get like less airtime, I was like, oh, that fucking rules. So yeah, simply put, the box set.
Okay. Nice. And here we are now. So I got to almost sort of rekindle my relationship with Led Zeppelin doing this, because I never really hated them or didn't like them. I just got kind of tired of them, and I figured out what aspect of it made me tired, and it is the aspect that I still think is the weak aspect of Led Zeppelin, but I'll get to that. But that being said, though, I have to admit, like, I now have been infected by this thing where now I want to get all the Led Zeppelin albums, because there's so many moments where I went, oh, this fucking song too. Like there's just every single album that we're going to talk about has at least 2 or 3 songs that I just go, oh, fuck, this is on this. It gets so there's going to be really the only negativity is going to be directed at one person in general. And I'll get that out of the way probably in a couple albums here real quick. But but yeah, I'm just like, it's like people like to comment and say things like, oh, that's so overrated or overplayed. I'm like, well, no, you're probably listening to it too much. And if you really like take a step away from these things that are quote unquote overplayed, when you come back to it after a good period of time, you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? So
that was like me with Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. I was like, there's so many other Nirvana songs I like. Why is this the one that only ever gets played on TV? But then after a while of not hearing Nirvana, when that song came on, I was like, man, this is an anthem, dude.
Yep.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Game changer.
And that particular band is another band that would not exist without Led Zeppelin. Early on, Nirvana was covering Led Zeppelin songs. They covered Heartbreaker, and I think They may have covered
Song,
another.
there's
They
footage
did
of.
Immigrant Song too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's footage of them like jamming in a room, but they've like grungified it, like really just roughed it up. So it's like dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
ah!
Yeah. So needless to say, like so much music that I love, the most important music in my life, all of the bands would probably say, "Yep, Led Zeppelin had part of it."
Yep.
So it's about time that we got to this, to Led Zeppelin. So let's get into this. Let's do our ranking, which we'll do from the least good to the most good. And as usual, I tried my best to find that middle ground between objective and subjective, and I think I did it. I feel 82% secure with my ranking. But as usual, I'm gonna throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to start us off with his number 9. Number 9. We're gonna get to the Beatles.
Yeah.
Number 9. How many? What they need to? Here's what you need to do. You need to redo that song by the Beatles. Only have the guy from GTA go number 9.
Big Smoke, yeah.
Number 9.
Ringo's Smoke.
Anyway, all right. Number 9 Led Zeppelin album.
Okay. So my number 9 Led Zeppelin album is Coda.
Hey, same. I mean, it makes sense. So
Yep.
we match up here with Coda.
And it's one of those that's like debatably a studio album, but really it's like it's a compilation of songs that they had completed but just never made the albums.
And two of them are live, I believe, but they're recorded. It doesn't, the way they're recorded and mixed, it doesn't necessarily sound live. It just, it's a live performance, I guess.
I think they had like a few guitar overdubs and they wiped as much of the audience out of the mix as you could.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a bits and bobs compilation sort of thing. But kicking it off, I mean, we're gonna groove. It's a live recording with some guitar overdubs and the audience eliminated, like I said. Cool song though. Poor Tom. Led Zeppelin 3 outtake, kind of folky track as expected for that era of the band.
Yeah.
There's a live version of I Can't Quit You Baby.
Mm-hmm.
But the second half, in my opinion, is where it gets good.
Yeah. There's two songs in particular on this second half that I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a high chance that you and I are going to be in agreement on what those are.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, like Walter's Walk, driving energy in that track, love it. Ozone Baby, fun rock track. Darlene is just some swaggering rock and roll goodness here. I love that one. You got Bonzo's Montreux, crazy, weird and wild drum solo.
I love that. It's so cool. It's just
so wacky and strange, but it's great. Yeah.
I honestly, I wish that bands would do stuff like that more often now. Like, just throw some sort of weird solo track on there that you fuck with somehow, because in the middle of an album, it's actually kind of cool as long as it's not too long. And Bozo's Mantra is not. I don't think it's too long. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, it's cool, but like
I said, Bozo's Mantra, Bonzo's Mantra.
I think you did.
Not the clown, because all of a sudden there's a clown. All right, AI, we're going to create Bozo the Clown playing a drum solo.
But it's all like horns and cartoon sounds.
And all around him are those little buckets you have to throw the balls in. Anyway.
But yeah, the closer, I think, is the highlight, Wearing and Tearing.
Yeah.
Underrated as hell. Awesome song. And how it didn't make in Through the Outdoor. Most of this second half is in Through the Outdoor outtakes. In Through the Outtake, if you will.
And I think Wearing and Tearing, it's their fastest song, right? I don't think they did anything. That's the fastest they ever got.
It like borders on metal. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. There's a real bite to that. And, again, this is going to be a love fest pretty much from the get-go, because there are at least a few kick-ass moments on every album here.
Yep.
But with that, that is my number nine. Number nine.
Also my number nine. So this one was in 1982, so it was released after John Bonham had died.
Yes.
And I honestly, I think this is kind of the way you do it. Like if you're a band that a lot of people love, a large amount of people love your band, and then your band is pretty much over, and then it's definitely over because your secret weapon has passed away. And I think this is the way you do it. Just polish up and put out an album of some unreleased stuff, and don't over bloat it. Like that's the thing, is that there's something great about just a tight 8 to 10 track of unreleased stuff. We don't need 10 demos and 10 live performances of songs that are on other albums that are live. Like I like how they did this. It's just, it is my number 9, but only because it is just leftovers. And some of the songs are just okay in my opinion when it comes to Led Zeppelin's output, but yeah, there's some bangers on here. But yeah, it just that's the one thing I'm gonna have to say about it is I love how they did it. I think this is the perfect way to close out, if your band suddenly stops like that or whatever. This is great. It's perfect. Everybody take note and do something like Coda. Don't just take the best and put it out in a little album. So anyway, also my number 9, Coda.
Cool. So that brings us to number 8, and my number 8 is, we're currently going chronologically backwards. So my number 8 is In Through the Outdoor.
Hey, mine too. In Through the Outdoor, which is
already
funny.
Matched up twice. What a way to start the year.
But it's funny because In Through the Outdoor is, I would say, one of my favorite Led Zeppelin albums. But when I got to the point of comparing it with the other things they did and what they accomplished with what period of their band, this one I had to go, it's got to go at 8. But I fucking love this album. I think it's great.
I am 100% with you because it's really cool throughout. But there is something there that's making me think, if I stack this next to, for example, Physical Graffiti.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Physical Graffiti as something that embodies Led Zeppelin. But this album's interesting because it's basically them. They've bought a synthesizer and they're just making a bunch of different sounding songs. Like not one song on this album sounds the same.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kicking it off In the Evening is cool as hell. Like really sprawling, psyched out, synth-laden rock track that just makes me think about riding a motorcycle through the desert in fucking Arizona. Cool as hell. But, there's certain songs that make me think of the start of the Wild Child video by Wasp, where Blackie Lawless is on a fucking Harley, just like riding through the desert. And it's just, it just gives me that vibe, man. Like, I love it. Southbound Suarez, bouncing piano rock and roll groover. Fool in the Rain, man. Like that shuffle, good Lord, that is tasteful. Like I love a shuffle beat. Rest in peace, John Bonham. And fuck it, rest in peace, Jeff Porcaro as well, because some of the great shufflers went to bloody soon. Yeah. And love a good Rosanna shuffle. Hot Dog. Fucked Up World.
No, not that one.
I was
Kiss my starfish.
Baby, stop it. I was thinking to myself, this is definitely your favorite song because it being a hoedown honky tonk sort of vibe.
Yeah, it's definitely not the highlight for me. But to be fair, when somebody from another country does a song like that, I like it a little more because I feel like they're not going to try to molest my cousin or something. I don't know.
Or molest their cousin.
or molest their cousin. Somebody's cousin's getting molested. Anyway, but not on this album.
Sorry. Anyway, Carousel Umbra. Tell me you just bought a synthesizer without telling me you just bought a synthesizer. This big ass 10-minute track is just full of cool synth stuff. But I think the highlight usage of synth on this album is All of My Love.
Yeah.
Because it's a cool song, and I like to think of this as Led Zeppelin's All White, where it's they're a guitar band, but this song is a lot more keyboard focused, and I think it's cool to have a song like that once in a while where you just say, hey, giving the 6th string a rest.
Yeah,
it's just really cool song. And lastly, you've got I'm Gonna Crawl, which is this like suave ballad that kind of closes things out. And it's a strange album because there's so much I like about it, but at the same time there's just a certain thing that puts it at the bottom on account of it being so un-Led Zeppelin. I can't really, it's not the album I think of when I think of Led Zeppelin, but when I put it on, I enjoy it. It's strange.
It's I really enjoy this album, but also, like I said, it's one of the first ones of theirs I heard all the way through back in the day. So there's a lot of nostalgia with this album as well. But I have to admit that listening to them all together, and then this one sounds the most phoned in. Not all of it. There are parts of it that seem very phoned in for Led Zeppelin. And I think if I read about it, they weren't really like enjoying working with each other and were kind of doing the bare minimum to throw together an album, I guess.
Yeah.
But some of the shit is just amazing. But I think that, I guess as an original album, it is their weakest, but the fact that their weakest is this, like, that's fucking amazing. But this brings me to my gripe about Led Zeppelin. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I loved this band so much when I was younger, and I'm rediscovering that love now. So my gripe isn't necessarily me saying I think this should be changed, but it's a definite, I can point at that and go, this is the weak aspect of Led Zeppelin if there is one. And the weak aspect of Led Zeppelin is Robert Plant. And not necessarily as a singer, although if you listen to a lot of other vocalists from around the same time, he's not exceptional. He's good.
He's got that identifiable charisma.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You take Led Zeppelin. By the time In Through the Outdoor comes out, it has been a decade of Led Zeppelin music. Yes. And they have made it very clear that they do not give a fuck what anybody thinks, and they will progress in any way they decide they want to progress. If they want to put a song that sounds almost like a little funky song on one of them, that's going to be on there. They want to do like a Fool in the Rain, they're going to do that. Like, it run everything. Like, just as we go through these albums, I think almost every album has one of those moments where I go, man, they just didn't give a fuck. They just did whatever they fucking wanted to do.
Yeah.
That being said, all of that progression, and then you take a song that sounds so fucking badass, like In the Evening, and what does Robert Plant do with the chorus? I need your love. Got to have. He literally cannot grow as a fucking lyricist. He is the most boring lyricist. And there's so many aspects of songs where I go, if he had written better lyrics, mind-blowing songs. But there are so many songs that I can't get over that he seems like a dude that because he's sexy, they're just letting him come along and they're just like, look, you can sing, the women love you, just do your thing. And he's like, yeah, I need your love. You already said I need your love in like 10 other songs. Doesn't matter, I still need it. And it's just like, just fucking grow. It's like, so, and there's so much of that. There's so many shit lyrics from Robert Plant that, and I'm okay with one or two need your love kind of songs, but there are so many to the point, like if you really wanted to sum up, what are the Led Zeppelin songs about? Lord of the Rings and love.
Yeah.
Like those are the two things. But but yeah,
the duality of man.
I know that there's more to it than that, but there's way too much baby need your love shit in their music. And the music deserves better than that because some of it is so fucking amazing. Now, I know there's some lyrics that are better, but I don't know, did other members write the lyrics? Did John Paul Jones write some lyrics and then Robert Plant sings them and that's why they're better on certain songs? I don't know because I'm not like a giant fan of this band, but anyway, point being is that always bums me out because In the Evening is such an amazing opener.
Yeah.
But the chorus, I'm like, he should have done something so much better than that for that part of the song. And so that's it. I'm not gonna gripe about it again until we get to another song that's like that. But that being said, maybe that's what made Led Zeppelin so amazing because they were a band that pushed so many different fucking boundaries and broke so much ground, but there was still that maybe Robert Plant was the human element that was like keeping them grounded, where
Perhaps.
they're all just like, we're sailing into the stratosphere and he's like, no, we want pussy now. And like, that's what kept it all, like the common man could be into them,
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, In Through the Outdoors, great.
Yeah. I mean, you got to bear in mind, Led Zeppelin didn't write songs that everybody liked. They left that, to the Bee Gees.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I had to fit that in somewhere.
Which we'll get to
that Wayne's World poster behind you throughout that whole thing.
We'll get to the.
When can I drop it?
We'll get to the Bee Gees eventually.
Oh hell yeah! I started a joke.
That's another band that like I don't know so much of their music, but every Bee Gees song I think I've ever heard I've liked. So we'll get there too. Put that on the list. Bee Gees. Anyway, yeah. So In Through the Outdoors, great, but it's the least great of their original actual albums. So I had to put it at number 8. So move on to number 7.
Okay, well, continuing with a theme here based solely on the fact that it's probably the album that I have spent the least amount of time with, however, I still think it's rad, is Presence. So this is where we part ways. Okay, yeah. My number 7 is Presence, and up until we did this, it's always kind of been the forgotten album for me. Like I knew In Through the Outdoor and pretty much every album around it apart from maybe Houses of the Holy. I came around to that album a bit later too, but I mean Presence, I'd probably spent the same amount of time with Presence as I had Coda, to be fair, but I always knew Achilles' Last Stand and Nobody's Fault But Mine, and those two songs alone are like fucking incredible. I mean, Achilles' Last Stand is just 10 minutes and not 1 second of that is wasted. That is just awesome song straight to finish. For Your Love is groovy. Royal Orleans is a full-blown funker. It was at this point in their career where they were like, yeah, fuck it. We've proven it time and time again that we will continue to expand what we can pull off and just do it. But I mean, Nobody's Fault But Mine, like I said, incredible song, absolute banger. Candy Store Rock is a groovy, upbeat rocker. Hot Song for Nowhere is this swingy, rockin' groover. And T for One is a big-ass, smooth, bluesy jammer. And it's a good album. You know,
I really think the reason it gets overlooked is because there's no big radio song on it. Like
no,
there's
no.
nothing from this that you overhear anyway that you hear on the album rock radio or whatever. You
It,
don't
it's
hear anything.
it's it's definitely the hipster Zeppelin album for sure. Yeah. But with that, it's still great. It's
Yeah,
just fucking Led Zeppelin, dude.
yeah, I agree. My number seven, I don't know if I think there are certain fans that this will trigger some fans that I put this here. And others I think will totally understand what I'm talking about. My
Can I
number
guess?
seven, what?
Is it Led Zeppelin 1?
Yes, it's Led Zeppelin
Hey!
at from 1969. So this was, I think they put out two albums in 1969. I think this was January 1969, and
Yeah, and
and
2
then Led
was
Zeppelin 2 was at the end of the year.
yeah.
Which that's how these bands fucking worked. But so the one thing, because this was the first one, and so I actually like did some research on it because I was really fascinated by um the sound of Led Zeppelin albums from album number one,
Yeah.
because there's a sound that, sure, other people have used it down the line, but I was like, did this sound exist prior to Led Zeppelin, which mostly has to do with the drum sound for me.
Yeah.
And I read that Jimmy Page was one of the first people to experiment with placing microphones further away from the drums and then incorporating that, what do you call it, ambient sound or whatever,
like room sound, room mics.
room sound into the mix.
Wow.
And that's part of the thing that I love that. And then, of course, later on you got like Steve Albini is another guy that does that shit a lot too. But apparently the first like prominent person to fuck around with that was Jimmy Page. And not only that, this Led Zeppelin album was the first album that was released stereo only, because prior to this, you could get a version of the album in mono if you didn't have a stereo system, or in stereo, blah blah blah. But this is literally just a stereo album. That's also very cool to me, because that's as a musician and a songwriter and a person that has put together his own music. That's one of my favorite things about putting together music, is once you've recorded it,
where does
placing it everywhere and figuring out like what amount of reverb or room or whatever you're going to use, and volume and all that stuff. And so I love hearing albums that take advantage of that kind of shit, which nowadays there are some bands that still do it, but for the most part, it's so fucking compact that it doesn't fucking matter. But I love the sound of the Led Zeppelin albums for the most part, and just that kind of recording. I love it when because I don't really care about the quote unquote organic sound. You can fuck with it however you want, but I just love an album feeling like you're in a world with the album, and not that the album is like in your face and it's just in one little spot and you're just like, fuck off,
Yeah.
But
you're standing too close, goddammit. Yeah.
But to me, those are the really big positives for the first album, is that they right out of the gate sounded fucking great fucking band. Obviously, I mean, they'd all been playing in other bands for a while, so it's like, they weren't new necessarily, but this was a new band. And the reason why this one, even though like it does have classics, Communication Breakdown, Dazed and Confused, those are on there, and there are some classic songs, but my gripe with this album is that it's just made up mostly of covers or reinterpretations of songs that already existed.
Yeah. This is where like Led Zeppelin get a lot of heat, where people are like, "Oh, their Led Zeppelin one's mostly stolen shit." Like,
I mean, to be fair, it's bluesy stuff that they probably heard it from somebody who was doing a reinterpretation of somebody else's version of it. So I don't really care about that stuff. In fact, when there's other examples where people point out that they may have ripped somebody off, and there are certain points where I go, well, as a songwriter, we'll get to that, but there's some ways that I understand how that happens without you knowing it. But then with this, I think it's just that they were a new band, and they were like, well, these are bluesy songs that we can easily fucking riff on, and if we're supposed to play a 4-hour set at this bar, we can literally do this one for 10 minutes, 20, 15 minutes. So I understand it, but as you go through Led Zeppelin's catalog, you learn very quickly that the bluesy stuff is the least interesting stuff. And to me, when they truly become Led Zeppelin is when they leave that behind and they start forging like their own path, and like, we don't need to do this. But there's even all the way up to Led Zeppelin 3, there are songs that are really cool, but if you break it down, it's still just the blues scale. And so that gets kind of boring to me. And then, of course, Robert Plant is very like ooh ooh baby a lot. But and a good example of that is it's communication breakdown has always bothered me because it's such a cool song, but it's almost like somebody had written the chorus of the song and went, "Oh, this is fucking rad. Hey, Robert, can you fill in the verses?" Sure. I don't know what it is I like about you, baby, but I like it a lot. And then finally it gets to the chorus. It's like, communication breakdown. I'm like, oh, that's fucking great. But then it goes back to the chorus. It's just like, oh, baby. I'm just like, oh, God damn it, Robert. Yeah, I call you Robert. So I'm just, so it's always bummed me out. And I've had people tell me in the past, well, doesn't it fit? Like he sounds like he doesn't really know what to say, and he's really into this woman. It's a communication breakdown. I'm all like, I think you're reaching with that. I think they had a chorus that was really good, and he really didn't have any lyrics. So, but it's still a fucking classic song. And once again, would changing it make it better? I don't know, because like I said, maybe Robert Plant's weaknesses ended up being a benefit to the overall strength and popularity of the band. So who the fuck am I? But the bluesy stuff gets old really quickly, but it's a really strong debut, but just the fact that it gets followed up by an improvement within a year, I had to put it last because I'm just like, yeah, it's cool. Well, not last, but you know what I'm saying? Like it has to be down the list because it's cool. It's a fun listen, but Led Zeppelin starts to become quote unquote Led Zeppelin to me a little bit later on. And then they do some of the most legendary music in the fucking world. So, so that's my number 7, Led Zeppelin 1.
Cool. Well, I can jump straight off of that because my number 6 is Led Zeppelin 1.
Nice.
And the debut and Good Times, Bad Times is a hell of an introduction for a band. You couldn't hope for a better way to introduce a band than dang dang. Yeah. Like, we're here, damn it. 60s, fuck them, they're done. 70s time, It's right out of the gates with that banger, some of the most iconic drumming right out of the gate. Bonham's on full display from day one.
Well, I cannot say enough great things about John Bonham. Like he's just because he does that thing where his drumming feels very relaxed, but also ridiculously well constructed at the same time. It's pretty amazing.
It always struck me as like listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin. It's entirely dependent on which song you're listening to, but it's almost like listening to the smartest caveman to ever exist. This dude is doing cave paintings of fucking equations because this guy can bust out a shuffle beat, but he knows exactly when to just
Yep.
Just exactly the right shit for the right part, you know? That
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a Bonham groove that I didn't think was filthily tasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But
Which is
it
which
is
is a
one,
big reason why he was sampled so much on early hip hop too. There's so
exactly.
many bottom beats on hip hop songs.
It's all over early Beastie Boys, isn't it?
Yeah, for that first album has a few. Yeah.
Yeah. But a big thing for me with this album is I feel like it has some sequencing issues. Like I feel like all of the momentum they gain with Good Times, Bad Times is immediately dashed by Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. I think both are great songs, but I think Babe,
Yeah.
I'm Gonna Leave You should have been later in the album. I feel like that's one of the first, we kind of tripped there, you know? We could have
You know
had
what? That actually makes sense now that you're saying it. I'm like, yeah, that probably would be a good like side one closer, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, because I would have preferred if they'd swapped it around and gone Dazed and Confused there, you know, because that's a rocker, and it's like,
Or fucking Communication Breakdown. That
Yeah.
always sounds like a number two song to me. You know, like the
Yeah.
second song on an album.
in a good way, not the bad number two.
Oh yeah, no, not that number two. Track
but
two.
check one, check two. You Shook Me, one of many rock songs to bear this title.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, it's one of the.
Are you gonna? But how long? How long do they want to be shooken? Because at least AC/DC was just like, look, just do it all night long. You know?
Well, that's the thing. In this song, he says, "You shook me all night long."
Oh yeah, you're right.
And then you've got Loudness that came up with "You shook me all night long."
And then you got Jet Boy with "Feel the Shake."
Yeah.
And then you got Skid Row with "Shake, Shake, Shake It Like a Rattlesnake."
Yeah. And you got Cinderella with "Shake Me
Oh yeah,
all
yeah.
night." That's my awful Tom Kiefer impression.
Now I'm all like my brain. I'm just searching for shake songs. Like,
Yeah.
all
Well,
right, anyway.
the thing that always struck me funny while we're on the subject,
Rattlesnake Shake by Motley Crue.
both glam metal bands, same song title, same year. It's
Yeah.
it just always struck me as did
To-
one hear the other and think,
There are some occasions in music where that happens, and I always just look for which album came out first, and I was like, they heard that shit when they were in the studio.
yeah, they liked this phrase, yeah.
I'm gonna say Motley Crue stole it from Skid Row because Motley Crue also literally just stole a phrase from Def Leppard and made a song out of it, and so it's like that album. I love Dr. Feelgood, don't get me wrong, but you know, Rattlesnake Shake Rattlesnake Shake and Sticky Sweet, or just like, come on, dudes.
But you know, now we get to track 4. I mean, Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath would go on to make a whole career out of songs like this. This is one of the heaviest songs pre-Black Sabbath, you know.
Oh yeah, this is right before Black Sabbath, like literally
Predating them by a year.
Like Black Sabbath was probably still Earth at this point. Maybe.
Yeah, they would have been. Yeah, it's really cool. Like I remember the first time I heard Dazed and Confused, I was like genuinely taken aback because I was like, I didn't know there was stuff like this before Tony Iommi. You know, I thought he was the guy, but you know, there's things are more gradual than people would have you believe.
Yeah.
But you know, you got Your Time Is Gonna Come, which has that big old anthemic chorus at the end. Black Mountain Side's a cool track. Communication Breakdown, up tempo blast of pure energy.
Yep.
I Can't Quit You Baby is, you know, a classic early Zepp track. And I think How Many More Times is underrated because that is an ass kicker of a closer.
But once again, it's just a blues riff.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know,
yeah.
It's not. It's cool. It's very well done, but it's not. It's just not very interesting to me.
That being said, like you said, it's the first album. It's kind of embryonic Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Lead embryo, we'll call it.
It's like the bar band Led Zeppelin album. Like it's their set from when they played the bars.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess when they started, I don't think they started playing bars because they were already well known. So I'm assuming that they probably started off playing bigger places. But yeah.
You ever look at gigs from that time and think how strange it looks sometimes? Like you'll see just like there's a really bizarre fucking performance of Deep Purple doing Child in Time, and the it's like a TV performance, and everybody is just sat in a semicircle around them, looking really well behaved, like obedient school children, just not making any noise and just watching. And it's like you play that 10 years later, and people are going, "Ah, fucking hey, dude!" It's like really strange to see just this era before people were going skits. But then again, you look at stuff from the 50s of rock and roll. I mean, there were some pretty wild parties then. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe places had rules before the mosh pit arrived and rendered them fucking useless.
Yeah. I think that there were people that were hesitant to accept the fact that music
makes you want to fuck.
Well, it can give you like a physical response, and it took several years, but then eventually more and more people just encouraged it, like, hey, do what you feel when this music moves you or whatever. But yeah, there's still probably all kinds of venues and studios where they were just like, no, you will sit there with your hands in your lap and you can bounce your legs if you want to the beat, maybe clap along,
tap your foot.
yeah but that's it. But
Robert Plant's a nice young man.
he needs to work on getting bigger pants, though. They don't seem to fit him.
So yeah, with that, my number 6, Led Zeppelin 1.
Cool.
Bada boom, bada bing.
My number 6, you already talked about it. Presence from 1976.
For me?
Presence with a CE at the end. I like this album, but and this is when Led Zeppelin had already become the Led Zeppelin that I think are fucking phenomenal. But I feel like this is an album where it does feel, for their creativity, like it's a little bit of treading water here, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know why my dogs just bark at everything. Okay.
Guest on the show.
Yeah. And it's probably, who knows? It's Amazon outside. Who the fuck knows?
What do you think of Presence?
But yeah, so Presence is great. It's still really high quality shit from a band that was just untouchable, at that point. And I love the later day Led Zeppelin groove so much more than the early stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that even with something badass like Achilles' Last Stand, it still is not quite as interesting as the few albums that come before it. And so I had to put it here, but you are right. I think this is an album that it's way better than it deserves way more attention than it gets. But I really do think it's just because there's no Stairway to Heaven or some big fucking radio song on it. But I still think it's great. So that's my number 6, Presence. We've already gotten to the point where I don't really have any other gripes, because I can only gripe about Robert Plant needing love so many times before it gets really annoying. Hopefully he eventually found love. I think he did, because now he does like bluegrass music, and so I think he's finally done. He's just like, I got love eventually.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah,
full credits.
he used to live, the city that I used to live in, Austin, Texas. Robert Plant used to live there.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he had I mean, he had a house there anyway. I don't know how often he was there, but I remember that some people seemed obsessed with trying to find where he lived. And I was like, I mean, he probably wants to be left alone, but okay. But I think he lived, because I think also Meatloaf lived there too. And I think I feel like they lived near each other. Like Meatloaf lived near Robert Plant. And I was like, yeah, that'd be an interesting meeting of the singers.
Yeah. I smell a sitcom.
Well, I mean, one of them's now dead, but the other
Yeah.
one still kicking it. Anyway, we're at number 5, top 5 Led Zeppelin albums starting now.
Okay.
My dogs are very excited about that.
I think they want to weigh in on this.
They're mad at me for putting Led Zeppelin 1 so low. We love the blues rock.
You ever seen that? There's a TikTok of a guy, and it makes me fucking laugh every time. And it's a guy. He's just filming on his phone, and it's just like captioned with like diss track incoming, and he just walks up to his dog and goes, "A, oh, 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 oh." And the dog's just there like looking really confused at him. And he's like, "Oh, oh." It's fucking made me laugh.
That's funny.
Oh, but yeah, my number 5 is Ashes of the Holy.
Oh, all right. Way too low in my opinion.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those albums that came along a little later for me, so it's like it doesn't have the sentimentality I have for the ones I put above it.
Yeah, I also very shortly after the other 2 Led Zeppelin albums, I got Houses of the Holy on vinyl back when I was a kid too.
Yeah.
And loved it. In fact, at the time, it was my favorite. When I was a kid, I loved Houses of the Holy.
Yeah, great. It's a great album, and it's one of those really varied ones as well. This is,
Yeah.
I feel like when they dropped the numerical thing with their albums, they were like, fuck it, we're done with numbers.
Yeah.
We're fucking symbols now. And
Yeah.
we're going to be really, really weird, And I like that. The song remains the same. Upbeat rocker with these like bright, jangly guitars kick off the album. Excellent track, burst of energy. Rain Song is a smooth track. Over the Hills and Far Away. I mean, when this song kicks in, that's some feel right there.
Yeah.
The Crunch. Full-blown funk song, one of my favorites on it. Like,
yep, it's great.
Yeah, it's just killer. And some of the stuff on it is just like really strange. Like,
yeah,
I love it. And it's one of those songs that really grew on me over the years. Because the first time I heard it, I was like, "Is this fucking Zeppelin?" And now I'm like, I'm delighted when it comes on.
Yeah.
Dancing Days, this song has a lot of tension and release going on, some really cool dynamics in this track. Now, it took me till recently diving into this to realize that the song I've been calling Dire Maker is pronounced Jamaica because it's a fucking reggae song. And the moment I realized that, I was like, I can't believe I never made that connection. I was just sat. I remember I was sat on the sofa with my girlfriend, and I just went, "Oh my god!" She went, "What?" That reggae Led Zeppelin song? She's really into Led Zeppelin as well, so she knew exactly what I was talking about. I said, "You know how it's written Dire Maker? It's Jamaica." And she just burst out laughing. Like, for fuck's sake, how did that take us this long?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great track. I mean, these guys are a rock band, and they've busted out a funk song and now a reggae track.
Yep.
No Quarter is this psychedelic track.
And then fucking amazing song.
Yeah. And finally, my favorite is The Ocean.
Yeah.
Love the riff in this song. Gotta love an odd time signature when it shows up. It's just great. Houses of the Holy is really cool, but it's an unfortunate casualty of having been a later discovery from me, and I just have so much attachment to the ones above it. It ended up there. Still in the top 5 though.
Oh yeah.
And being a top 5 Zeppelin album is not bad going.
I mean, being a Zeppelin album period is pretty fucking good. So my number 5 is Led Zeppelin 2, their second album in 1969.
See, shockingly low in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, really, the only thing that keeps us low is they're still relying a little bit too heavily on the blues riff, and but it's in the top 5 because I think it's fucking great.
Yeah,
and because it's an easy, like, it's easy to see the improvement and the growth of the band, but I think the fact that there still is a little bit too much bluesiness on it, and the stuff that's non-bluesy is to me the very strong shit on the album. That just makes me go, they needed to shed a little bit more of that. And also, weirdly enough, I always felt like the production on this one is kind of all over the place. Like, some songs sound really good, and other ones I'm like, I don't get, it doesn't sound great.
I can hear that.
I don't know if it was rushed and that's it. But I mean, just this gets to the point in their albums where you just start looking at a track list and you're just like, Whole Lot of Love, What Is and What Should Never Be, Heartbreaker, Ramble On, Moby Dick, all on this album.
Yeah.
And so and Moby Dick's a really good example of them. You can tell they're trying to break away from the blues stuff, but Moby Dick is still just a fucking blues. If you break it down, it's still just a blues riff.
Yeah.
Now that being said, it's done way cooler than most other bluesy stuff, but
because there's a 3-minute drum solo in the middle.
Well, yeah, but it's just. I think really that's honestly the only thing that keeps this from being higher is I think the 4 albums above this, there have so much more that I just look at as amazing music from a band that their influences are now gone and now they're the band influencing. Whereas on Led Zeppelin 2, I feel like it's half and half. Where half of it is the band that would end up influencing the fucking world of rock music, and then the other half is, hey, this is what influences us. And so it's in the story of the band, it's cool because the progression from 1 and 2 is great, but it's not until 3, in my opinion, where they truly get to that point where I'm just like, oh, this is fucking Led Zeppelin now. But yeah, Led Zeppelin 2 is a fucking banger. And yeah. Look, and also I think when I was a kid, one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs was What Is and What Should Never Be. And I think that if I remember right, that's the one where I loved it when I was a kid because there's the kind of a breakdown part at the end and the guitar keeps going from one speaker to the other speaker. And as a little kid, I was like, oh, that's so cool. But anyway, yeah, Led Zeppelin 2. It's great. It's a great album. It's Led Zeppelin. All right, bye.
Oh yeah. Okay, so my number 4 then. This is where it's gonna get confusing because it's like my number 4 is Led Zeppelin 3.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so Led Zeppelin 3 is what I refer to as the half and half Led Zeppelin album in terms of what each side offers. You know.
Okay.
You got your rock side, you got the folk side.
Yeah.
He takes a lager drink, he takes a vodka drink. And I mean, it kicks off with the Immigrant Song. Man, the openers are always killer. Like, what a ass-kicking song.
Yeah.
But then that's followed up with Friends, which is psychedelic as all hell. Really cool stuff.
Yep.
Celebration Day kicks ass. You know, the blue. Since I've Been Loving You, the bluesy track known for the squeaky kick pedal, you know, but that doesn't affect my enjoyment. If anything, I like it more.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm like, that you don't hear that anymore. That's a level of ambience and in the room goodness. That's
like there's like sometimes leaving in things that would be considered mistakes just makes it so much more interesting. Like a good example on Led Zeppelin 2 on Whole Lot of Love, where a vocal track that Robert Plant did prior to that was bleeding through the track that was used, and they
Yeah.
just left it because they didn't know what else to do with it. But it still sounds very cool when you hear him go "Woman," kind of before he says "Woman," and it's
Yeah.
like that's the older track bleeding through, and I'm just like that's fucking cool because it's always been a very cool part of that song for me, and it was a mistake. So leave the
Yeah.
squeaky kick pedal. Yeah, if your voice cracks a little bit and it sounds emotional, keep it in the fucking song. Quit editing everything all to shit, people.
Yeah.
All right?
You're overdoing it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Get some help.
Act like you act like you've been here before. All right. Anyway.
Man, let me just double check real quick because I always get mixed up. I'm just gonna really quickly hear the opening to a song because for some reason Docs fucked up my notes for 3. I must have had like some sort of fucking power cut or some shit, or maybe I didn't save it.
Get your
Yep.
shit together, Google.
Out on the Tiles is my favorite song on this album.
It's great. It's a great song.
I fucking love it. I always get it mixed up with Gallows Pole because they're right next to each other.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But and the second half, I can basically say the same for the second half of the album. Basically, just being, it's almost like you've got a rock EP and you've got a folk EP, and you can pick which one you want to hear.
Yeah.
Which is cool because this basically lays out where they'd go going forward.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin 1, like you say, they're the bar band version of themselves, playing blues standards as well as some of their own stuff. Led Zeppelin 2 has 1 foot in the blues stuff and 1 foot in the rock stuff that they would define. And then Led Zeppelin 3 is like, yeah, okay, we've got a rock sound. Let's grow beards and be hobbits for a while. And I think it's a cool album, but it's one of those that bounces around people's lists because of the way it's sequenced, I think.
I could see that.
And I really like it, and I think it deserves to be in the upper half. But I think as a whole, for a listening experience, I have to be in the right mood for Led Zeppelin 3, regardless of the quality of it.
Yeah.
Whereas my top 3 I can throw on whenever.
Yeah.
So yeah, Led Zeppelin 3 is my number 4.
Cool. My number 4 is Physical Graffiti from 1975.
Wow.
And the big reason why this is at number 4 is because there is an album's worth of some of the best music they ever did and a bunch of other stuff that's just pretty good. And so it's too long. It's like, it doesn't need to be that long, but there are amazing fucking classic songs on this. I mean, Kashmir is on this, but I still love it because it's enjoyable and still them being adventurous and doing whatever the fuck they want, which is the Led Zeppelin that I prefer. But it's just not every song is killer, but like every, like the Wonton song or Wonton song, how would you say that?
I'd say Wonton.
The Wonton song. And then of course the actual song Houses of the Holy is on this.
Yeah.
And Trampled Underfoot is on this. And so it's just got so many songs that I think are really strong. And then other songs that I'm like, man, if they had cut this in half, it would be one of the greatest albums ever. But I think that it's just a little bit too bloated. But I don't know. It's just me trying to make some sort of a reasoning for my ranking. But yeah, the songs that are on this that I love, and then the other ones are also really good. They're just not. It's like legendary and fantastic. Yeah. Just the fact that the legendary stuff just overshadows the other stuff to me. And it's just, to me, I don't like really long albums most of the time. So that's already going to be a strike against it, but it's still fucking great. Number 4, Physical Graffiti.
Cool. So, very nice. I've got that one a little higher because my number 3, Speaking of falls, my number 3 is Led Zeppelin 4, otherwise known as the untitled Led Zeppelin album with the cool symbols on it,
Yeah.
on the back or
Yeah.
somewhere on it, because it's the guy with the sticks album. It's the album it's the album people call for but don't call for. The 4th Led Zeppelin album I'm driving at here.
I still just call it 4 because it's just it's like calling the Black Album the Black Album. It's not what it's called, but everybody knows that that's what you're talking about. So
yeah, for sure. And it's, I mean,
because what are you gonna do? You're gonna walk into a room and be like, you know what my favorite Led Zeppelin album is? That was me nodding my head and not saying anything.
Yeah.
There's no title.
It's like that fucking Pearl Jam song on Yield that's a red dot on the track listing. It's just not even words. Just
that's what I'm just like, Pearl Jam, go fuck yourself. Write a fucking title for a song.
Speaking of Pearl Jam, we'll get to that in a second. Black Dog is a riff fest, and I love it. It's the song that made me fall in love with Led Zeppelin. First time I heard it, I was like, oh, this is why. Because I'd heard Stairway, but at the point I was kind of spoiled by thrash.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're talking early on, like 2010. So I was about 11 or 12, starting to learn how to play guitar, and all I wanted to do was learn how to go. Like, that's all I cared about. So when I first heard Stairway, I was like, I don't hate it, but it's not heavy. And then Black Dog comes along. Oh, right. I get it now. And then gradually I matured. And when I got into Led Zeppelin, I actually, understood that soft ain't bad. It's just a different flavor. But you immediately follow up Black Dog with Rock and Roll, which is an absolute classic. A lot of people are like, oh, it's overplayed. It's overplayed for a reason. It's good, but then, see, this is where they realized that how to sequence an album, because Black Dog, then Rock and Roll, and then you got Battle of Evermore, which gives you a folky, like, kind of thing going on. I love the Lovemongers version of that as well.
From the Singles soundtrack, which has Pearl Jam on it. It's all coming together. Stairway to Heaven, no Stairway. Denied.
There we go. Misty Mountain Hop is a fun track. Walking in the park just the other day.
That's a really great side B starter for me. I love it.
I love the, like, kind of, what's it called? Like, is it like a Wurlitzer keyboard? Like, kind of that. Is it
a Hammond? No, it's not a Hammond, is it? I don't know what it would be called. Somebody out there,
something like that. It's a keyboard of some description of the era. 4 Sticks is really cool. I like just the feel of it. First time I heard that, it actually gave me, this is me showing my age here, it gave me the vibe of the music that you would get in a Spyro the Dragon game. And, like, Stuart Copeland composed the music for those games. So obviously it's a very percussively driven thing. And I thought to myself, I'm sure there's a level in one of those games that has this beat in it. And it's definitely lifted from this, because he's a drummer. He understands and respects, Bonham and what he did. But then, okay, finally we get to talk about Pearl Jam for a moment. Going to California, it's a great song that would.
Are we going to talk about Given to Fly? Is that what's happening?
I'm gonna mention that. There ain't no way in hell that was an accident. But
I mean, it could have been an accident at first, and then they just had to throw up their hands and be like, "Look, it is what it is." Because I'm saying, I've written songs like that before, where I go, "This sounds really great, but it sounds like something. Oh fuck it, it's gonna go." And then later on, you're like, "Oh my god, I ripped off Michael Jackson or something.
I'm not shitting on Pearl Jam. I love Pearl Jam. And I love both songs, and I think both are great for different reasons. But like when I hear it, it's like the chord changes and the melody. It's like, wow, that is an unfortunate case of accidental plagiarism if I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
But you know, both great songs. Anyway, we're talking about Led Zeppelin. Going to California, great song. But finally closing out with the epic When the Levee Breaks.
Yeah.
Like, good God. And that, again, like we said, that is such an iconic drum break that
it starts off the first Beastie Boys album.
Yeah. And it's I mean, Bonham's all over hip hop, like you said.
Yeah.
But I mean, good Lord. He really was the secret weapon.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, like I say, Led Zeppelin 4, you know, overplayed, maybe. Undeniably awesome. Absolutely. And yeah. I mean, it made it to your top 3.
I'm not talking about it yet. I've got a lot of things to say about my top 2, but my number 3 is Led Zeppelin 3 from 1970. You already talked about this one, but fucking Immigrant Song is just what an amazing way to start this thing off.
Yeah.
So it's this album still is a little bit on the bluesy side, but this is the first one where I really do think it feels way more like their own shit, their own spin on things. Finally, like 100% just kind of comes full circle, and to me, this is the first like where they're really like this badass fucking band that just writes amazing songs of whatever kind of song it is. And then the songwriting is improved on this as well. I thought it was fascinating that I didn't really know that John Bonham did like any actual songwriting, but Out on the Tiles is almost totally written by him.
Wow.
And I thought that's fascinating to me. So I need to like dive in deeper and see like what other songs he had a hand in helping write. But this also has fucking Tangerine on it, which I absolutely love that song. It's just so, there's a few really soft folky songs that Led Zeppelin do that are just some of the most beautiful music ever made when it comes to that kind of stuff. And Tangerine's one of them. And I just think that Led Zeppelin 3 is an insanely solid record, just filled with classics, and it's just another stepping stone in them just becoming this fantastic band. And then they do 2 albums in a row. And I don't say this often with a lot, but really thinking about these albums and really stepping back and looking at everything and then how I feel about it, I would, on these top 2, I would use the word perfect. Like, I don't think there's any way you could, like, even with my gripes about Robert Plant or whatever, these 2 albums, I think that if there's a small group of albums that you can use the word perfect on, like where I would argue with somebody else, if somebody didn't like it, I'd be like, well, you're just an idiot. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a fact. These are perfect albums. I would say that about these top 2. So let's get it going.
Okay. So my number 2 is Led Zeppelin 2.
Alrighty.
And you know, I initially thought that this was going to be my number 1 because it's always been my go-to Led Zeppelin album, because for me personally, when I think of what I love about rock and metal music, the thing that always draws me to a band is, do you have riffs that are going to cause me to make a face?
Yeah.
You know? And we're all familiar with the riff face. This one.
Although I think mine looked more like a Robert De Niro impression right then. I don't know why I did it that way.
You're talking
a little bit. You insulted him a little bit. You did.
But yeah, like I say, to me, this was where everything fell into place for them as a rock band. And of course, they've still got the blues influence going there, but this is where it went from some blues and some rock to all rock with a little bit of blues in there. And I mean, it kicks off with Whole Lotta Love, Stone Cold classic. I mean, fucking Lemon Song, the riffage on display here, man. Thank You, Heartbreaker. Good Lord. I mean, one of my favorites is Heartbreaker. Living, Loving Maid. She's just a woman. Like,
funny enough, over here, I don't know if it's this way all over the country, but in Austin, in the prominent classic rock channel on the radio, they would always play Heartbreaker and Livin' Lovin' Maid next to each other.
Yeah, because for me, it's the same with me as well, where it's like bow down down get it.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're incomplete without one another when I listen to it that way. I think it's
I never thought of them that way until I started hearing that on the radio, and then I go, oh, okay, I guess it makes sense that they go together.
Yeah. Did I forget a song? I did forget a song in my notes. What Is and What Should Never Be. Fucking incredible.
Oh,
track.
which I love. Yeah, what's one of my favorites.
I can't believe I didn't write that down. I thought Lemon Song was a little early. Anyway, like I say, I mean, Ramble On is a perfect example of Led Zeppelin as a whole in one song. You know, you got the folkier end of the rocking stuff. You know, it starts with like, it's like if you brought an amp to Middle Earth, you know. I mean, fucking. Is it me or has autocorrect gotten worse? Because I did these notes for the most part on my phone because I lost my fucking laptop charger for a week. I found it now, right on the day after I needed it. But right here, it says "Money Dick."
Why is that so funny?
It's a good name for a band. That's what it is. Money Dick.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's a good name for a male prostitute, I'll tell you that.
Oh, Money Dick. All right.
Oh, that's old Money Dick. He works the corners.
You're not looking for him. You're looking for the electronic music guy. That's Moby Dick. He's over there.
And then Bring It On Home. To Bring It On Home is a cool closer. It brings it on home. And that is...
It does what it says on the tin. It brings it on home.
Yeah, I love Led Zeppelin too. It's the... Of the first four, like, kind of quote-unquote numerical era, it's the one that I gravitate towards the most because it's like they're early on and you can tell it's Ride the Lightning syndrome, I call it, you know, where they come out with a major improvement on their second album, but they're still kind of hungry and young. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say that Led Zeppelin at the time were a no-name band, but they had yet to become the monolith that they would. Like, they very easily could have just been like another one of those, you know, a band that came out in the early 70s with a couple great records and, you know, drugs took over or they got dropped from the label or some shit. But no, these guys fucking owned it. And they still do own it. You know, they are one of, would you say one of the big four classic rock bands? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
If you were to do like a big four of classic rock, like who would make the cut? You're talking like Led Zeppelin.
But how far? Well, what do you include in that? Like, is the Beatles included in that? Because the Beatles I would include just because they're so influential to so many, and I think that the majority of their output is not. some people will call them overrated, but I think that that's just silly. Some of their stuff isn't great, but the large amount of it I think is insanely good.
Yeah, but for me, when I think of classic rock, I tend to think of classic rock because I don't necessarily think of by modern standards. I don't really think of the Beatles as a rock band so much as I think of them as a pop band of their era that just so happened to write really interesting songs. I don't think they were all rock, I suppose. I mean, they've got rock and roll elements to them at points,
I mean,
but they've done
they are a rock band. It's two guitars, bass, drums. There's no,
yeah.
you know,
I think my line of thinking was kind of altered by they're not. I suppose it kind of when bands like Led Zeppelin came along, it became a lot more about like riffs, whereas
yeah.
I
But
tend
you want to know what? It's when you started doing that riff, that first note made me want to go bow bow down 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 down
yeah,
down down
you got a
down
point. Yeah.
down. I mean, there's a lot of shit, but you can maybe make a separate for that includes like them and like the Kinks and bands like that. And then
I'll frame it differently. If we were to do like a big four British invasion bands, it would
oh,
be Beatles, Rolling Stones, you that
Led
that kind of thing.
Zeppelin,
Yeah, Led Zeppelin, but
they're
like
British.
they,
The
yeah, but
Who.
I'm thinking of like how long
Okay.
was the British invasion era? Like,
Uh,
cause
I mean, I don't think it was very long, but it was very impactful.
yeah,
Um,
like when
and
is that era considered? Is that like early to mid 60s, or
yeah,
does that run into the 70s?
no, I don't think. I don't know. I'm not a musical historian about that era at all, but it seems to me that
Yeah,
when the bands that are in the tail end of the 60s and into the 70s, I think they're not. I wouldn't call them British invasion because at that point, Led
yeah,
Zeppelin starts, Black Sabbath starts. When
yeah.
did Deep Purple start in the mid 60s?
Deep Purple's a
Um,
funny one because they started as like a completely different thing as they would end up. So there's like
yeah,
three 60s albums where they're like kind of
yeah,
um psychedelic, you know, that you got Hush, like na 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 na. But
yeah,
as soon as 1970 hits, they're a fucking hard rock band.
yeah.
And then that's what they would continue to do there on in. I'm just thinking
The
in
it's
terms of
yeah. This
like
is like an
very
entire. This should be an entire episode on its own, trying to figure out
yeah.
who would it be because there are bands that I think of, and you could make that same distinction where maybe they're not full on rock. Because I would say Pink Floyd is insanely influential,
Yeah,
but Pink
yeah,
Floyd it was more psychedelic rock, and you know, they weren't super riffy all the time. They have some riffs, but I mean, for the most part, they're not really known for that.
I'm
So would
thinking
Pink
just
Floyd fit in more with the Beatles than Led Zeppelin? I mean,
it's a
shit.
tricky one because I'm trying to think of it. I'm trying to think of it in terms of um like era, scene, where they're from,
Oh
the
shit. I mean,
circumstances of the time. Like, like
yeah,
if we're calling, because if you think about it, the Beatles came along early to mid 60s and got real interesting in the mid to late 60s.
yeah,
But by the time Led Zeppelin started and came along, Beatles were already
yeah,
almost gone.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I'm thinking about more in terms of if you were to do a big four of 60s classic rock and a big four of 70s classic rock.
oh
I
shit.
see. I see because it's that thing of. I mean, Nirvana put out Bleach in '89, but they're not an '80s band.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay. So, but we're not talking just England. We're talking
I'm
anywhere 70s
talking.
rock.
I'm talking Big Four '70s rock. Who were
So
the kingpins? Because I'm inclined to think.
so Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
This is the four that they are in my brain because they're the four that I look at and go, oh fuck yeah.
Yeah.
When they got big in the 70s.
Okay.
So Led Zeppelin,
Yep.
Aerosmith.
Of course.
Um, I had it. I had it right there. Where the fuck? Rush,
Okay.
Kiss.
Okay. I was thinking Kiss too.
Mhm.
I'm thinking. God, it's tricky though because then I think, what about Queen? You know, I mean, Queen got mega success by at
Yeah,
least the end. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's tricky because once someone becomes testament, it's
Was
that thing
was
of
was I don't I
then
don't
there's
know.
ACDC.
The only one from that group that I'm comfortable with leaving out is Aerosmith because like I love them and
Yeah,
they're huge, but I don't think that because all of these bands we're talking about were insanely influential, and then you've got a band like Kiss, which was arguably the most popular of all of them because they
yeah,
crossed over into this area where they were just fucking I don't know I don't know what you would call that because it's like it's musically they obviously influenced a lot of people, but also they were just massive like celebrity status type shit.
yeah.
Their personas anyway, you know.
Man, okay. I'm gonna try and do a lightning round.
Okay.
I just typed in classic rock bands 70s, and we're just gonna. I know we're absolutely teasing the listeners right now with the number one slot, but build suspense. Let's do like a quick thing of, do you think they're eligible for the Big Four contest
Okay.
of 70s classic rock? Okay, starting off great. Leonard Skinner,
No.
Allman
They
Brothers Band,
no.
Grateful
They,
Dead. I knew none of
no.
those were
What
gonna
the
make it.
fuck? This is
Yeah.
all music that should be utterly destroyed and removed from existence.
Okay, here we go. Aerosmith, obviously
I mean,
eligible.
I mean, personally, yes,
Yeah.
I could see arguments to not, but yeah.
Okay, Steely Dan, Eagles.
I mean, so Steely Dan is like that's a band you listen to when you go, holy fuck, that band was killer. But did
Yeah,
they really have the reach
yeah,
to an influence on that was wide, a wide spanning? I don't think so.
for sure. Eagles, Talking Heads, ZZ
Oh,
Top.
so the Eagles,
See, Eagles could be. They got loads of
they were
hits.
huge. They were
Yeah,
huge.
like
Um,
like when you can turn around and go greatest hits volume 2, I feel like you've made a success of yourself.
and their greatest hits volume 1, isn't it one of the best selling albums of all time? Like it's
Yeah,
like it might
I've
be
got a copy
the
of it
best
here
selling
somewhere.
album of all time.
Yeah,
Talking Heads get fucked. They remove that shit too.
ZZ Top, Blondie,
I like
Doobie
ZZ Top.
Brothers.
Yeah, I love some Doobie Brothers, but that's not. Does that
Yeah.
count? Is Doobie Brothers considered Southern rock? Because they're way too funky for me to call them Southern rock. Because
I don't know. Maybe they dabbled in. A lot of these bands dabbled in a lot of different stuff. It was an interesting
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Man, it feels so sad to me to no longer see Kiss since 1973, and it just says 73 to 2023. It
oh,
it saddens me that they're past tense.
but they're not. They're going to
Yeah.
be born again as
In Fortnite.
an animated theme park video game. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm here for it, whatever it is, unless it costs a lot of money, and then I'm not here for it because I
Yeah.
don't have that. I spend too much money on records, so I can't afford your expensive ass shit.
Yeah. Chicago, Journey, Led Zeppelin. We found Led Zeppelin.
Led
They are
Zeppelin.
definitely they are in there. Ramones, Van Halen, but Van Halen came along too late. They're a big 480s band.
But they are just an entity to themselves. I don't think they belong to any decade. It's just Van Halen.
They're a big four in themselves.
Yeah, they literally, the big four are whoever's in Van Halen.
Yeah. So I got Blue Oyster Cult, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd would be in the run-in for the big four. The Doors.
The Doors are great. Were great, but they're not. They're a band that some people seem to really hate, and so and I could see that. It makes sense.
I'm gonna make a call and say that I think Black Sabbath should be in the big four of 70s classic rock.
Yeah.
Mainly solely based on the fact that they birthed an entire genre, and said genre has countless subgenre versions of it. So I feel like to exclude Sabbath from said big four of this would be foolish. Cheap Trick, The Who, The Cars.
Yeah, Cheap Trick were too late, I would say.
Yeah.
The Cars, same thing. Cars, an amazing band. I don't think that they're more new wavy.
Yeah. Sly and the Family Stone, Velvet Underground, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Deep Purple are in the running, I reckon. I think.
Yeah, probably. I would say so. They're very influential. I don't. Yeah. So it's hard to say, because I really do feel like, Black Sabbath was like the top of a pile of music that made heavy metal. They were just like the prominent one on top. But I think all of that together, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, all of that stuff together is what is truly influential. Because really, like, if Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple didn't exist and it was just Led Zeppelin, would later on, I feel like it's the combination of bands that is the big deal in the 70s. That all of that shit existed all at the same time. Like it's like the early 90s for us. It's like, just thinking that all these fucking bands were out at the same time. But imagine the 70s when, because the bands in the 90s would point to the bands in the 80s and the 70s. But the bands in the 70s weren't pointing to any other bands like them. They were pointing to music that was in different areas. That wasn't rock and roll necessarily, unless you want to get into the Beatles and whatnot. So, I mean, that's just an amazing fucking time for music, that it's just like, the shit is essentially new.
Yeah.
In certain ways. And we take that for granted. I think we take bands like Led Zeppelin for granted sometimes, because it's just like, oh yeah, they get played every fuck hour on the classic rock radio, but there's a reason for that. Yeah. And anyway, so I don't know. That'll be another episode where we discuss top fours of different things. Maybe that might be interesting.
Yeah. I definitely think, just while I've got this list up, I think Rush, AC/DC, and Queen would be in the running for that, because they all came along early enough.
Yeah,
but
I would throw Rush in there simply because the prog world, because they were a big band. Because you have other bands that the prog people can look at. You can look at fucking Yes or some band like that. But Rush was the one that I think had the biggest reach for influence. And the prog world is, every prog band is into Rush, I would think.
Yeah.
But they're not all into King Crimson. It's like,
yeah. This episode is sponsored by Rush.
Anyway, okay, all right. I'm sorry. Let's get back on track, because I have to do my number 2.
Cool.
One of two what I would consider perfect albums.
Okay.
I don't think this is a fight me situation. Like, I really don't think that there's any other way to look at these two albums, any other way that they're perfect. And this is the only way that this was going to work out. This felt perfect to me, so I'm just gonna go for it. My number 2 is Houses of the Holy from 1973, and I can't imagine. Because I read that critics didn't think this was a good album when it came out. And that is why.
You
So
love it.
1973, what is that? 50 years ago? 50
Yeah.
years ago, music critics were also full of shit. They've been full of shit since the beginning of time to now. Some of them aren't, but a good majority of them are, because their heads are really too far up their own asses to really see what good shit is. And I think that's exactly what was happening with Houses of the Holy, because it's just, you have to think about Houses of the Holy following up what is arguably one of the biggest rock and roll albums of all time. And I guess at the time they didn't know that, but they knew it was fucking popular. They knew they had fucking nailed it with Led Zeppelin 4. Following it up with Houses of the Holy, where they continue their progression and still are just like, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want to do. And they're still making some of the best, it's like some of the best rock music ever made, but still they're experimenting, they're pushing boundaries, all while writing fantastic songs. And they didn't just try to recreate the formula of Led Zeppelin 4 on this. And I love that. I love, and like, just like the tracks on here, song remains the same, the Rain song, Dancing Days, No Quarter, The Ocean. If those songs were the only ones on the album, it'd still be amazing. But it's just like,
Yeah.
It's just so, and it's what it's Led Zeppelin does, what I want every band to do, where every album, some sort of progression and something different, and then within that album, we are going to give you these different vibes that somehow our mad genius brains have thrown together into this cohesive album. It all sounds like Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy, but you could talk at length about the differences between each song. And to me, it's just amazing. And so many bands are just so happy with fucking phoning it in, especially after they have a hit album. And I'm just like, the fact that, like, you know, this early on, like, I would say that there's not even a Black Sabbath album that I would call perfect. You know, I love Black Sabbath, don't get me wrong.
Closest, I think, is Master of Reality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably for me as close as it gets. But just, I was trying to think of something on these albums, like even Robert Plant's Everything About These. Like, I don't know if he wrote all the lyrics or if other people wrote lyrics, but even on the songs where it's supposed to be more of a love song, I feel like he did a way better job of expressing himself in an interesting way. And I don't know. The Houses of the Holy is fucking amazing. And the only reason it's number 2 is because my number 1 album, I feel like it is one of the number 1 musical things that I think people take for granted, how fucking absolutely mind-blowingly amazing it is. So much so that I just looked at the track listing and I went, number 1. so that's my number 1, but Houses of the Holy number 2. But I think that if we were going to talk about my favorite Led Zeppelin album, it's going to be Houses of the Holy, hands down. But I got a lot to say about my number 1, and we'll get there. And your number 1 is a little bit closer to my number 2.
Yeah. So my number 1 is Physical Graffiti. Now, this is a double album, but a double album by 70s standards, which I think it should have just stayed. You know, I think double albums don't need to be any longer than this.
Yeah.
Because really a double album is 2 records, the length of the max you can fit on 4 sides of vinyl.
Yeah.
But nowadays you got motherfuckers dropping like 24 song hip hop albums, and it's like,
And then a month later they have a special edition of that has 32 tracks on it.
yeah. Yeah. And honestly, this album is one of those that's kind of like a gift that keeps on giving situation, because normally, like you, I'm not a fan of overly long albums.
Yeah.
This one, on the other hand, like, there's so many songs on here I just fucking love. And even the fluffier, quote unquote, filler material on here, I feel still fits enough within the album's aesthetic that I can just get completely lost in this album. And by the time I'm out the other end, I'm like, wow, that was a ride.
I mean, it is utterly enjoyable all the way through. You're right.
Yeah, and for me, this album, in terms of, I kind of looked at it in a way of how many songs on here are undeniable bangers that I am not sick of at all, you know, and not one of the songs on here am I tired of whatsoever. Every other album of theirs has that one song there I'm like, I know this beat for beat. I can start on another track if I have somewhere to be, whereas this one, this is a stay in the car until it's over. It's kind of situation.
That sounds like it'd be a good slash and mash. Like, what the fuck would you remove from it?
Yeah, it'd be tricky, but but I mean, Custard Pie, he's a horny bastard, isn't he? Like, but it's a great opener. The Rover, good God, the riffage in that song is killer. In My Time of Dying is just a killer 11 minutes of badass bluesy swagger. Houses of the Holy, wrong album, classic Zepp. Trampled Underfoot, that clav riff is iconic, man. Like, that is one of those I never get sick of. That And to think, these fuckers had the audacity to put a song like Trampled Underfoot, like a song that if you had one song like that on your album, it would be a mic drop moment. Immediately follow this song up with fucking Kashmir, dude.
Yeah.
Good God, man, what an awesome song this is. And I know we all know it, you know.
Yeah.
Are you sick of it? Because I sure as hell ain't.
No, that's
like, this is one of those that's just immune. It's like this mighty monolith obelisk of a song that just lords over you like, hey, I'm 8 minutes of pure awesome, and you're gonna sit through every fucking second, little bitch. In the Light, this song is borderline Sabbath territory, you know. Like, I know Sabbath were out at this point, and they probably heard that and were like, oh, hey, that's cool, let's try our hand at that. But you know, they do it so well and with their own flavor to it, you know. Bronyor,
I don't know why I've always had, I mean, this may be a thing that happened, I don't really know, but I've always just imagined that Tony Iommi and Jimmy Page and who's the guy from Deep Purple?
Richie
Blackmore. I just imagined them all just getting beers together and just being like, what is it like just being fucking badass and like, what are you doing? I'm doing this riff. Oh, it's cool. I should do one like that. Yeah, cool. Let's do that. I feel like they were buds somehow. Like they I feel like they just all seem to be working from a similar mindset of these, just creating these amazing riffs, and I don't know. So they just seem like similar dudes to me. I don't know why.
It's kind of like how something that always amazed me was I mean, this is going on a few years now, but it just never ceased to amaze me how there's like a grouping of bands that were, you know, were rooted in the 70s but were hair metal adjacent later on. And
Yeah.
there's dudes that were in like Quiet Riot, Whitesnake, and Ozzy's band within the span of like a 10-year period, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what a fucking life that is, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? I was thinking about that recently because I've been going back and, you know, listening to some White Lion because I love White Lion.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh fucking shit, that's fucking James Lomenzo on bass, who's now in Megadeth.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's fucking sweet.
Yeah. It's wild, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
oh man, like I'd love to see like a database. I'm praying that this exists so that I can find it one day.
I'm sure it does.
Like there's like a database family tree of just like pieces of string attaching every band to every band, like a 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of deal. But it's with all the hair metal bands that were like 70s band adjacent, and they were just like somehow in everyone's band at some point, like Tommy Aldridge. Tommy Aldridge was in umpteen fucking iconic rock groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's killer stuff.
I'm actually curious, now that you mention that, I'm curious to know who has been in the most bands like that were, like, when it comes to 70s, 80s rock, the most successful bands, who was in the most, like, who touched the most platinum selling rock albums in the 70s and 80s?
It's got to be one of the Toto guys, man. 100%. Like I'm seriously thinking to myself, who is someone that comes to mind as being on an absolute unholy fuck ton of stuff?
Well, I'm meaning being a full-fledged member. Like, they were introduced as a member of the band at some point. Like, who would that be?
Then.
You know?
No. I'll have to.
Yeah. Would it be Vinny Appice? I don't know.
Yeah. What I mean, to be fair, if you combine Vinny and Carmine into like just one Siamese twin kind of situation, I mean, they win. But good God, man! Like that is...
Anyway, yeah, that'd be interesting. If anybody knows who's been in the most successful rock bands more than anybody else, I'm wondering.
The Appices or pieces, because one says one and one says the other.
Oh,
I think one.
Maybe we should say "fuck you" to both of them and call them a Pice. You guys are now the Pice brothers. Fuck you.
Oh man, I don't want to start I don't want to start beef, especially with Italians. But I've just seen. You know what I said about fucking. I don't even know. I don't even know. Yeah, you know what I said about autocorrect? By the way, I don't know if they're of Italian descent, but I just made a guess. Anyway, down by the seaside. Now, I can't wait to... It's a soothing balls type of track.
So now here's the question: Are the balls doing the soothing, or all of their balls being soothed?
Oh, they are soothed, my friend.
You know what? That one Led Zeppelin song, if you're gonna have a song that's gonna soothe your balls, it's the Seaside song.
Oh man, I was supposed to say ballad, for fuck's sake. I need to misspell that more often because that was funny. 10 years gone. Sorry. Yeah, 10 years gone.
All right, now we're gonna be. This is what we've been reduced to.
Okay, 10 years ago. Ever since the dog, man, I can't. 10-inch dong. Fuck! I did it again. 10 years gone is a laid-back groover.
Laid-back ball soother.
Night Flight, cool. Psyched out guitars on this. I was gonna say cool soothed balls.
You can.
Wonton song. So many killer moments on that song. Boogie with Stu is a folky boogie. Black Country Woman is
is she from the Black Country, or is she herself black? I don't really know.
So right. I need to get all the genitalia out of my head. Right. Bluesy 12 bar. Fuck. I'm sticking with it. Sick Again is one last rocker to close out on.
Dick Again.
Physical graffiti.
But you this is your fault, because now my brain is just hearing words that sound like dirty words, and that's just going to be what I'm doing from now on.
You're just gonna balls, dog, cock and balls of evermore. Okay, right, over to you.
Physical graffiti is your number one.
It do be that, yes.
My number one. You know what? When I decided to put this number one, I was like, am I being a basic bitch by putting this here? But then I went and listened to the album, and I'm like, no, I really think we take Led Zeppelin 4 for granted, because it's so much of it is we've heard so many times, but it's considered a classic for a reason, and it's not just that. There's no weak song, and it's a good variety of songs. The way it's sequenced is fucking perfect. It's just the perfect blend of Led Zeppelin doing their like acoustic, their epic, their rockers, and it's just one of the most perfect albums like ever made. Like yeah. It's pretty amazing, because like, not only that, like other bands in the future, would try to make albums that were this good, but Led Zeppelin were just making another Led Zeppelin album, and it just happened to be Led Zeppelin 4 that they made. Like, it's just because prior to this, like if you think of like bands from the 60s or whatever, this is 1971 when this one came out. If you think of like bands from the 60s, sure, like you had like, people would talk about how great like Revolver or Sgt. Pepper's or something like that. But you go back and really like peel apart those albums, and you're like, it's not 100% awesome. It may be insanely influential, and maybe Led Zeppelin 4 exists because of Revolver or something like that. But prior to that, like there wasn't a big deal about making a fucking album that's just amazing as an album.
Yeah.
So, I mean, bands did it before Led Zeppelin, but I just think that it's just, I have to bring myself back to like, what if I was 13, 14 years old in 1971 and this album came out? Like at one point, this album was new. Nobody had heard it before.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a kid, when I got Led Zeppelin 4 on vinyl. And I don't think prior to that I had ever heard Stairway to Heaven all the way through.
Wow.
Because I would have been like maybe 9 years old or something like that around the time. But I remember playing the record on my parents' stereo in the living room. My parents had like one of those big shelf ones with the giant speakers, and then the turntable
Yeah.
rested on the top. And they never used it. And so like I would get records and they would go to the store and I'd throw on a record or whatever. And so I just remember listening to Stairway to Heaven the first time and just being totally like, this is like watching a fucking movie.
Yeah.
Like the way that it plays out and it builds up. And then there's just this ridiculously fantastic guitar solo at the end. And then it ends. It's just everything about that song. It's like, yeah, it's overplayed and people fucking, love it. And then they get tired of it. But it's only because it's just infected so much of what we think is great music that it's almost like, it's almost like, you walk outside and try not to notice the fucking sky above you. It's like you walk into the world of rock music and like, oh shit, here's fucking Led Zeppelin 4 again. It's like, and so just listening to it, and I think it's great that I took this big break from Led Zeppelin because I'm getting to go back and sure, I've heard Black Dog hundreds of times over the years. Still love it. It's still fucking amazing. And I still love the fact that a song like that exists with an odd time signature and a riff that at first you're like, what is that? Where's the one? Where does it start? But it's just such a massive step forward between Led Zeppelin 3 and this album. And it's amazing to me. Just putting together an album like this that is over 50 years old and I can still listen to it. I'm just like, it still seems way ahead of its time for me.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And so I put it at number one just because I'm like, man, it is really good. I would call it a perfect album, but also it's just so the fucking rock and roll world would not be what it is without this album. So many of the bands we love may not exist or may be slightly different if it wasn't for an album like Led Zeppelin 4. So I think it deserves to be number one. And I just, yeah. Like I said, it's not my favorite. Houses of the Holy is my favorite, but I had to go number two. Both perfect though. Both I just listen to them and go, God damn it, these fucking guys were just like, it's like, imagine that somebody would, like they couldn't have known. I'm sure they thought what they were doing was cool and they were really into it and they were proud of it maybe, but I just can't imagine a group of dudes just sitting in a room and writing these songs. And when it comes to Stairway to Heaven, like there's that controversy about it being ripped off from some older song that you can go listen to it online. You can listen to the comparison of the two. Yeah. And if that is true, if it is actually influenced by that other song, I think the band is Spirit. I think that was the band that did the other song. I feel like it was accidental. Like I've said many times on other podcasts, as a songwriter, I've had plenty of those times where I've written something and I thought, oh, this is so good, only later to find out that not even thinking about it, a song that maybe I had heard once or twice a year or two prior had seeped into my songwriting. And so I don't think in that particular case, I don't think they deliberately ripped something off. It's either great minds thinking alike or Jimmy Page didn't quite, that part of his brain, if the song was in there, that part of the song was in there, and then it came out as it came out. But to be fair, people love John Carpenter's The Thing way more than Howard Hawks' The Thing. Is that the guy that did the original Thing from the 60s or whatever? So sometimes taking something and changing it into something else, you improve it. You make it better and you make it something that's ridiculously influential. And so at that point, you just kind of chalk that up to, we're all just living in this big musical soup, and some of us deliberately rip things off. I think most of us don't. Most of us are just influenced, and sometimes it just comes out in a song. But
Oh, yes.
Anyway.
It's much like Star Trek, The Next Generation. In many ways, it's superior, but will never be as recognized as the original. I suppose you could flip that round for this one, though.
yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So that wherever I can.
So Led Zeppelin 4. That anytime in my life I've ever been, since 1992, anytime that I've gotten to be on the edge of a really tall building, I always make the Hockaloogie reference every single time.
Cassandra, from this height, you could really Hockaloogie on someone.
Anyway, so yeah, my number one, Led Zeppelin 4. I don't, obviously everyone's got entitled to their own opinions, but you can't deny that album's perfect. It is. And yeah, that's it. Led Zeppelin, man, the first band of 2024. And so the first time of 2024, we're going to celebrate our completion like we normally do. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we did it! Yeah, we need your love.
Just when you thought it was over, baby.
My apologies to Robert Plant if he's out there. It's you're great, but also, yeah. So thank you.
Blog is a great song,
but and a great title too.
Yeah. And it's in GTA 5. Hey, GTA reference before we got out. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you to the peanut butter platypuses and the aluminium squirrels out there. For those of you who didn't, for those of you who did not watch the Christmas/holiday special we did, that birthed a new what would you call that? A character? Not really a character. A symbol.
Demographic.
A symbol of our biggest supporters. And really, I think at this point, peanut butter platypus is a thing that like a lot more people know about it, and only some know aluminium squirrels. So the aluminium squirrels are the ones that are just like I'm soothing your balls. It's like. So anyway, thank you all. Even those of you who this is your first time listening or watching, if you've made it this far, then you are a peanut butter platypus, because that's what it means. It's you come here and you last through all of our bullshit. And also, as usual in the world of YouTube, use the comments to put your ranking of the 9 Led Zeppelin albums. And or whatever, if you have memories of Led Zeppelin or just whatever, just put it all in the comments, because I like reading that stuff, as long as it's not you shitting on shit that we had to say, because I think that we're pretty well. Sometimes I'm not very kind, but I think a lot of my complaints are warranted, I think. But everybody else, like your perspective and the way that you feel about things, I love when people do the really long comments that sort of just explains how they feel about everything, and it's done in a very sort of level-headed kind of way. I love reading that shit. So thank you guys for that. You got any parting words before we get out of here?
This was fun, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. And
I don't even remember what we're doing next, but I'm sure it's going to be great, whatever it is. But we'll talk about that after the show. But yeah, and we've got a lot of bands to go. We have a list. I think we already have a list that puts us all the way through the first half of the year at this point.
Yeah.
And we do. I know we do have another really big artist coming too. That is not. I wouldn't say as big as Led Zeppelin, but up there. And
we got some big names on this here list. I'm looking at.
And of course, we have your, grooved and removes and slash and mashes, and your. I haven't had anything to drink. I don't know why I'm slurring like that. What's that other thing we do?
You okay, man? I need to call the need to call the ambulance.
See in our sidebar. No, I'm good. I'm good. I haven't had anything.
Hello, 999. Yeah, my mate in Texas. Yeah,
it's 01188999999.
3. Oh, that's great.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. We'll be back next week with whatever we do. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be fun because you're going to be here and we're going to be here. So as usual, I'm going to throw it over for the first time of 2024 to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Later, dude. Ooh. Later.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.